Derek McNamara from reactrugby.com is back with us. Derek, good morning. How are things?
Yeah, good.
Be honest,
You haven't
be honest,
slept.
Derek. Be
Come on,
honest.
tell us.
Yeah, I had one of those nights that you have when maybe once or twice a year where all three of the kids woke at different times throughout the entire night. So you're watching the clock go 12 and then you're waking up and it's like 1 and then it's 3 and then it's 5. So basically I apologise in advance, but I hope you give me some leeway if I'm
No need to
not as
apologise.
coherent as I normally am.
Bad parenting, if you ask me.
Well, myself and Johnny are as far as we know, childless. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Okay, so
yourself.
you're yet to yet to experience the pain.
yeah.
Well, a lot of people relate to. I could not sleep last night for love nor money. I was wrecked tired, and I must have woken up 50 times worried about coming in this morning.
Worrying about waking up.
Yeah, waking up and just knowing the dread when the alarm goes off at
It's not nice, is it?
6:20. No, it's not, because I've been away in England for 2 nights, including a Cheltenham preview night. Your sleep is kind of disorientated. Early flight, and then I'm so tired here, I can't sleep. So it's a totally different one to Derek.
Yeah.
Well, you're dealing with stats all the time, Derek, too,
Yeah.
which doesn't make it easier because you have to. I mean, you have to concentrate by the whole nature of the whole thing.
Well, I tried explaining that there was no ice on the car. I was like, there's no sand in the... And I was like, oh no, that's not a good start to my day.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's just get through 25 minutes. I can give it my best for 25
Will
minutes.
you get a nap later in the day now?
Let's not get into that.
With 3 kids, it's not easy to find.
Yeah.
We'll get into the first
Very
slide,
busy.
Derek, because Ireland, Scotland, we might as well build up to these games. So the 3 games this weekend: Italy, Wales, Saturday 2:15. England, France is 4:45 on Saturday, and then the big one, Scotland, Ireland, Murrayfield, Sunday at 3 o'clock. So the first stats here we have stats comparing Scotland and Ireland essentially in some different aspects of the game.
Yeah, I guess what we're trying to do is we're trying to boil the game down again into kind of easy to understand analysis or things that people can look out for during the game. So we have work rate, for instance. So for people that can't see this at home, we basically broken down each team. You know, we've got 3 games of analysis now. We've actually got an enormous amount of data now that we can actually kind of lean on and actually start to kind of look at this information and say, okay, well, you know, what can we look out for in the game against Scotland? So Ireland are number 1 when it comes to work rate. Scotland are number 5. Tries against, Ireland are number 1. Scotland number 3. And then cards, things like, you know, cards, for instance, something to look out for. Ireland are at the top. I don't think we've actually got a card yet, but Scotland are down at number 5 in the 6-team tournament. So what we're just trying to show here is that there's a bunch of different analysis aspects or different parts of the game that we can try and show that there's significant difference between one team and another.
This is very interesting, the work rate by half.
Yeah. So
That's not by half. It's basically a ranking. So
explain for the people that are looking at that latest graphic up on screen. What does this?
So sorry. Yeah, we're going on.
First half and second half, yeah.
Sorry, if we just go back to the previous slide.
Yeah.
So the work rate is basically what we're saying here isn't that it's not half of Ireland. We're saying that when we rank all 6 teams, Ireland have had the most amount of activities in the game.
Yeah.
Then I think it's Wales and then anyway moving down. But what we're saying here is that Scotland have the second last, so they've got the second lowest work rate. That's what this information here means. But these are kind of box scores, right? These are just sort of high-level view of analysis. This isn't stuff that we would be calling as revolutionary from what we do. Not at all. It's actually, this is the easiest stuff that we do. But what I want to try and bring through is the next slide, if we can show the next slide, which is this is basically our grades. When we take each player's interaction and we aggregate the first half and the second half. So in this slide, we have 2 lines. One is for Ireland and one is for Scotland. The lines on the left show the work rate and the quality of the work rate in the first half and the quality of the work rate in the second half. And this is sort of analysis that we would have provided into Ron O'Gara last year, and he would have been able to look at trends and the way in which Leinster play. And they were able to identify that Leinster had a significant drop-off in the quality of their performances in the second half. And that's what this indicates.
Is that fitness, or is it change in personnel, or what is it? Or is it the tactics of kind of reserving yourself for, like Ireland have finished, like the French game, they finished so strongly.
Yeah. Well, this line, what we're showing here is the trend in Ireland's play at the moment isn't that they're finishing poorly. That was for Leinster last year. Ireland are actually dropping off significantly at the end of the first half.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So there's a big drop off, and that could be just because they're and this is if you were looking at this from an analytical perspective, this first half view is kind of what you want to see. You want to see the players, being as come out of the blocks, be as tuned in as possible, and then have a drop off throughout this first half. So that's what this indicates. But what we want to try and identify is, how do we identify the difference between a team and the quality of their performance? And this shows basically we have Ireland are better. There's basically 6 sections per half. Ireland are significantly better in 1, 2, 3 sections, while Scotland are slightly better in 1 and better in 1. So what we're trying to say here is that using the box scores, we can kind of tell a story, but using the analytics and the grades that we collect, we can actually predict to some extent what will happen if the game plays out in the same way as we'd expect. But
stupid question alert here, Derek, from me, but so you're seeing figures there for people who are listening as opposed to watching. 3.47, 3.44, Ireland kind of dropping off to 3.28 towards the end of the second half. What do these numbers mean? How do you quantify something like work rate?
So we say, okay, we look at passes, for instance. If we to give a grade of 1 to 5 on a pass that's a turnover is a 1, and a perfectly timed pass is a 5. A ruck is a 1 that results in a penalty or turnover that's dangerous, and a 5 is a perfectly body position, down low, technique perfect, protecting the ball. Carrying the ball is speed onto ball, so if a player's running as fast as they can, sprinting, then they get a 5. If they're going backwards, they get a 1. It's all of these scores are very, very meticulous. So carrying to contact, for instance, if you spill the ball when you go into contact, you get a 1. If you go backwards, you go 2. 3 is just somebody goes to ground. A 4 is they break a tackle but they go to ground, and a 5 is they break a tackle and they stay on their feet. So when we aggregate those scores, and the Ireland line, there's 4,000 of these grades graded in this green line. And it's the same for Scotland, probably a little bit less. But the idea here is that it's a very, very accurate score. So, there's maybe 300 or 400 players involved in rucks. We can then say, okay, where does Ireland lie compared to Scotland using this analysis? And it's what we're trying to do is we're trying to take all this massive amounts of information and provide it in a kind of easy to understand view. So you don't have to use your head. You can just go, all right, Ireland are dropping off in the first half.
Yes.
How can we try and change that trend?
You look at some of the other, I'm just looking at some of the other stats from that first opening slide. So you're talking penalties against. So penalties against Ireland in fourth, that's...
Yeah, so they're giving away. That's something that we would look to say to Ireland and say, look, this is something that you probably know. You're giving away too many penalties.
Yeah.
I think Andrew Porter probably get away with most of these. So, but look, that's something in minute detail. But the idea here is that's something to look out for. Ireland aren't going to be able to break Scotland down as much in that kind of halfway to their own to Scotland's 22 as much as other teams, because they're just not going to give away those penalties.
You wanted to touch on some of the other games as well.
Yeah,
so
I thought
England, France. You've similar stats for them. This game's going to be fascinating on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I guess we looked at England and Scotland as well. We kind of changed some of these stats are different because again we want to try and show a significant difference between them. So the things that are kind of really interesting is that England are joint first with us with no cards, and France are at the bottom. So France are the most indisciplined team when it comes to cards.
Things never change.
Yeah. And penalties against England are first, and France are fifth. So
England are hitting a lot of good metrics there, which seems a bit surprising.
This is the issue with the current state of analysis. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you kind of a very broad view, but when we start to look into it in a little bit more detail, we provide a secondary layer of analytics, which is based on passing, carrying, tackling, kicking, the metrics, the skill sets that you want to know, and England aren't quite at the top there.
That adds up.
Yeah. So what the one thing that we look at as well to try and take into consideration is passes pressured. So basically, England are number 2 when they pressure France. So look out for that quick line defence, trying to disturb France's game plan. And then look, obviously you'd expect this, but England are 6th when it comes to offloads versus France, who are number 1. So that whole idea of jouer is very much in line here. So we just go into the next slide. Then we're just taking the same view as the Ireland versus Scotland, where we're taking those thousands and thousands of grades and aggregating them by first half and second half, and you can see that there's not much of a difference between the two teams. England are a little bit better in 3 of those sections, and France are significantly better in 1. So, again, if we were to look at this and we were to, think about this from a gambling perspective or put it from a game plan, and also looking at the likes of, I don't think France have won in Twickenham in 15, 20 years or something like that. The information that we see here would indicate that England are probably favourites when it comes to this game.
This data is just based on the Six Nations this year, yeah?
Yeah, the last 3 games. So it's all equivalent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a perfect example of how to use data to drive decision-making and actually improve performance.
So for people listening as well, so England seeming by work rate, by half, seeming to finish each half slightly stronger than France have in the Six Nations so far?
Yeah, and exactly, yeah. And England come out of the blocks in the second half as well, tuned in. So watch out for points scored. We can actually layer over this where teams are scoring their points as well in the same vein to show you where, is this quality of performance equating to scores?
I would have presumed France were favourites, so England actually metrically have
There's things wrong with France, though.
Yeah.
There's things wrong with France. The previous slide would indicate that they're really not number 1. Like they're number 1 at offloads, but
it's the way they play as
their
well.
work rate, the way in which they play, they're 6th in work rate. So we think, I'm not sure if you heard the previous pods, but we've been going on about this from the start. Even last summer, we were talking about it. The fact that the new rules that they've brought in have increased the amount of ball and time played by 20%.
That's purrs. That's French laziness, or what's going on there?
No, they've played a very big pack, and those if you're getting them to work 20% more,
Tiring.
Yeah. Also,
yeah.
But they've also used the most amount of subs. So their subs have played most amount of minutes. Now that's due to the cards. So those cards are the reason why that happens. So there's like 4 or 5 things that are kind of jumping at me saying, okay, they're every game they play, there tends to be more of these small little issues that are coming up rather than them fixing the issues that they have. So the trajectory of Ireland is still at a very steady pace, improving, learning different ways to play, learning to play different teams. With France, it's plateaued. They're not getting worse, but they're not getting better. The defence is getting worse, but their attack is getting slightly better.
I love trying to decipher whose halftime team talks are better based on these stats. Like you see Scotland coming out stronger in games than Ireland in the second half, and similarly for England and France. The Gregor Townsend and Steve Borthwick team talks must be that little bit more inspirational based on these numbers.
It's also the changes you're making as well, like
True.
in the sense of the fourth quarter where you probably do want to change your pack a bit, like because they're getting tired or whatever. The 20% thing as well, like it's mad. It's like the World Cup in football where all of a sudden like you're dealing with like 20% more time because of injury time, and it changes so much in the dynamic.
Yeah, well, it's not. It wouldn't be as effective in soccer, I don't think, because it's not a physical sport. But when you've got guys running at each other for
so tired,
they're not conditioned to do it, and then you get a yellow or a red card at the start of the game, and all of a sudden your game plan changes. It's very much it's really has changed the game, but in a better way, right? Like the game is more free flowing. There's more passing. There's more evasion, which is fundamentally what rugby is, right? So that can be good. I can foresee the fact that players are going to reduce in size and skill level is going to increase, which is what you want.
And would the stats suggest Scotland or the Scottish game or the England game is more of the banana skin for Ireland in this quest for the Grand Slam?
Well, Ireland are very much based around process and understanding the way in which we play, and the fact we've got so many leaders in so many positions, it means that we're able to. The coaching staff are able to get that game plan over to the players, and players just take it over.
Okay.
But if you have any of those kinks in that group of players, like Scotland might have, they red cards, so they a couple of players that are missing. That's in Ireland with the work rate that we have. Even if Scotland get ahead, and I can imagine, I can foresee Scotland doing something a bit quirky, a bit different. Like I think it was 2017. They do a quick line out throw to the centre, scoring the try.
Wow.
I can imagine something like that happening again, maybe potentially with Scotland. But if Ireland can continue to keep that ball in play, Ireland's work rate should do it.
Battle for the wooden spoon, or to avoid the wooden spoon rather than Rome, Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, so there's some really glaring analysis ideals here from Wales especially. There's one thing that is very interesting. They've used the most amount of players in the competition.
Right.
England have used the least amount. But the thing that it doesn't bode well to a certain extent for Wales is their defensive game plan. They're doing a very high pressured game plan, but they're also having the most amount of tackles after ball. So after when a ball is passed, they're still continuing to tackle. As soon as you do that, though, what happens is that the players there's gaps in the defensive line, and that's what the pass is pressured. So Italy are 6th, so Italy are very passive in their defensive line, but the way Italy play, they're very, very fast. They're very, very quick. They're very, very quick at moving the ball. I would imagine that this would probably be a reasonably high-scoring game because of that, because Italy have got such fast backs and they run the ball so quickly. Even if they're missing, what's his name? I can't pronounce it.
I'm not going to attempt the Italian. Carvisi, yeah. Columns the
Carvisi, yeah.
Language guy.
Yeah, so, but the point here is that if Wales can come out and try and, increase the work rate, they could. And also, like, Wales, they do contest most of the plays. They do contest most of the breakdowns of all the teams. So it's quite old school way of playing.
Breakdowns contested. Wales are in 1st.
Yeah.
Italy 6th compared to the other Six Nations teams.
So Italy, again, quite passive in defence. They'll allow you to get the ball and retain the ball. They won't try and steal it. Whilst Wales, which it could have something to do with the age of their team, and they're not willing to run as much, and they're just willing to get to a breakdown, and they'll contest a breakdown, but not expect it to actually turn over the ball. They're just doing because they're there. But
do you have a general figure for what home advantage is worth in, or does that vary kind of, I guess, from ground to ground? Because like it's funny in the pandemic, all of a sudden just home advantage, certainly in football, like practically just didn't matter anymore. It literally is all about the crowd, funny enough, and that actually seemed to prove it. And you'd imagine this is a big factor for Italy here.
Yeah, I think it can be cyclical though, right? I think you can get a coach that will be able to work with a specific type of players to try and get more out of them for that ideal before the game. But if you don't play well at the start of a game, you're going to lose the crowd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter how much you have home field advantage. So I don't know. Like it's hard for Italy because like they have shown improvement, but they're not showing it on the scoreboard.
It's Capuozzo. Sorry that Italy are missing the course.
They're certainly scoring more. Like they're certainly scoring more, but they're obviously losing games.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough data to actually, accurately identify the difference between home and away.
Work rate by half. It looks to be, Derek. The time to really get at the Italians is just before half time.
Yeah. Or try and slow down Wales is more so. So in this line, the Welsh they have their best section at the end of the half. So basically, they're slow to get into the game. You probably expect that with the age of their team, which is quite old. But they do improve in the first half. So if you're Italy, if you can weather that storm at the end of the first half, then you've got a really good chance of winning this. So for people that are listening, Italy are better in 2 sections and Wales is better in 1 section. So it's a lot closer than the others again.
You have also been busy picking a React Rugby team of the tournament. Now, what I love about this is, generally speaking, when people pick teams of the tournament, it's biased. People have their opinions. There's no opinion that's necessarily wrong.
Yep.
This is firmly based in stats, Derek.
Yeah, this is This is as nerdy as you're going to ever get from a statistical perspective, yeah.
So maybe talk us through the team. So in terms of the personnel, France and Italy have no players. Wales have 1. Ireland have 4 players in the team of the tournament. England and Scotland have 5 each. So talk us through it.
Yeah, I suppose Pierre, who's the loosehead prop from Scotland, he grades really, really highly because he's really good at tackling, he's really good at carrying, and he's really good at rucking. So he does those 3 things, and obviously he's really good at scrummaging. So if you take those 3 things in open play, we weight those players towards what the average prop does. And by doing that, we can then identify who's the best player based on arrival rate, accuracy at the ruck, tackle, where they make the tackle, all these things that we can rank. There's like 92 separate grades or qualitative metrics that we use. So really nerdy stuff here. But the idea is that once we filter by position, we can then say who's the best player by week or by tournament or by whatever it is. And so that way we can, see that James Ryan would be, he's included. So the Irish players that are involved are James Ryan, Caelan Doris, Josh van der Fleer, and Hugo Keenan. And what you probably find is a lot of people out there, you don't need to do analysis to get that. I could have told you that.
Well, you got a lot of French people who are scoffing at this as well. They're like, how can we not have one player? We've the best scrum half in the world. But obviously the metrics suggest this.
Well, so when I don't have the actual. I could open it up, but it's not great radio. But
and I like sleep.
Yeah. It's but he hasn't had the best game. Game, and like the way in which France are playing, they need to pass the ball more. So the likes of Dupont, he's a good passer, but he's a really good carrier. But if he's not a leg carry, if he doesn't have his forwards making front forward ball and making, so how scrum halves break the game then is that they don't just break after first phase. Because there's never gaps there for first phase. There has to be go forward ball. They need to be able to get over the game line and actually make cause disruption in the defensive line. That's where he then goes. But if he's not allowed to do that, and he doesn't, the French aren't doing that, the Pack aren't doing that for him, then his grades aren't going to be as high as somebody like Jamie, I think I can't even pronounce his name, sorry. So he is really, really accurate at passing, but he's also gets the breakdown really, really quickly. So he's doing what a quintessential scrum half should be doing.
And why is Finn Russell, so why is he number 1 then as out of?
So Finn Russell, I was having a bit of a go at him last week, but he's actually...
you got to have a go at him and love him at the same time.
So you got to big up the Scots this week. Get them on their pedestal.
He's one of the reasons I certainly, as a floating rugby fan, I love watching him play. Yeah. Because it's something, you don't know what's happening here a lot of the time. Yeah. Obviously, he does, but I don't.
Well, that's another thing about the game on Sunday. Finn Russell actually had the most amount of touches of all players last week when you take away the scrum halves, because the scrum halves just pass the ball. But when you take away all the players, he had the most amount of impact on the game last week. And he's brilliant. I think he has the most amount of turnovers for 10s. I think the closest is 4. He has 12. Okay.
Wow.
So he does turn the ball over, but he also has turnovers 4. So he has 12 turnovers against, but he also has 2.
But he kicks the ball a lot as well, so he's kind of like, he will give the ball away,
Yeah, but he uses away that skip pass. But I'd imagine for Friday or Sunday's game, Ireland's team will have enough homework done about Finn Russell, and I'd imagine that although Finn will probably bring in, there'll be crossfield kicks, there'll be things to try and disrupt what Ireland are going to do in defence at the start. But I think Ireland will shut down Finn Russell.
What will they do?
If I was playing against him, I'd just blitz one person. Whatever, average 14. I think his average pass right. He primarily passes off his right.
Okay.
So he thinks there's like a 15% discrepancy between him passing left and passing right. So he doesn't get the. So when he gets the ball, and he's anyway under pressure, he won't pass off his right. He'll kick it. So what I would imagine is that the Irish team will blitz outside Finn Russell, not directly beside him, but like 15 metres outside him. And then that will mean that as soon as he gets the ball, and he's always going to give that pass because he likes passing, that'll just blitz the defence, and it will just slow down any go forward ball. And also, so the other teams that they've played against, they commit to the tackle much quicker. So they'll run up and they'll hit Finn Russell when he makes a pass, and then what'll happen is that Finn Russell will then do a dummy pass, and they'll all follow it the next time, and then he'll go through. So Ireland will know all this. They've got too many good players to fall for that. So I definitely foresee them. Yeah, Ireland winning.
Yeah. Some people listening, the full team in full, that team of the tournament, based exclusively on stats. Scoman for Scotland, Loosehead, Turner at hooker. You've got Sinclair for England at tight head as well. Second row of Chesham and James Ryan, Ludlow, Doris and Van der Fleer. No arguments there. Van Portbleat, as we said, at scrum half, and Finn Russell at number 10. You've got Hawkins, the only Welsh inclusion, at number 12, and Hugh Jones as well. And then no arguments with that one. Number 11, Duan van der Merwe. Hugo Keenan, as you said, Derek, at 15, and Mallins at 14 as well. So listen, people can let us know what they want us to touch on next week. We've got a fairly big game the week after this one if we beat the Scots this weekend, all being well. Someone in the comments has said, Jack has said, any stats on how many times James Lowe has to tie his hair back up? Potentially we'll look at that next week.
I presume you've that covered.
It's a difficult one. We'll look at it next week maybe.
Yeah. We can add it in there. Right? Yeah, not a bother.
It's a fairly important one. Derek, great stuff as always. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
Brilliant stuff. Derek McNamara there, reactrugby.com as